Good evening. We start our program Defacto Review on MNB World. We are also live on Facebook. In this program, we select 3 topics from the events of last week happened in Mongolia. Most important 3 events in our social, political, and economic life. My name is Jargal, and we can see also us on Facebook Live and the jargaldefacto.com website. Tonight, our topics. First, an official visit of Chinese Foreign Minister. A cold diplomacy. Next one, market and state. 3 goals of state intervention. The third topic is Mongolians are less interested to work. Too much social care increases poverty in the country. So these are 3 topics. Let's start our first topic. Official visit of Chinese Foreign Minister. Well, it happened during pandemic. That is alerting all the world alike. And these are mutual shuttle diplomacy between 2 countries. In February, on February 27th, President of Mongolia, Batulga, visited China and presented 30,000 ship. And recently, this money for this purchasing this ship was funded by state-owned enterprises, Erdines Tavantalgö and Erdinet Corporation. In 7 months after that visit, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited Mongolia on September 15th. The main purpose of the visit was to sign a contract to increase foreign trade between 2 countries and to agreement to open 3 railway ports, border ports between 3 countries, border stations. And it will be another one new. There are 3 major coal export railways lines will be built in near future. And the trade between 2 countries now at the level of $8.7 billion and of export, and total export and import together, and it will be $10 billion next year, according to the agreement. They will try to reach that level. Another important event of this visit was 700 million yuan RMB official assistance agreement was signed by 2 foreign ministers. And this money, this assistance, is a part of 2 billion RMB official assistance of Chinese government promised during the visit of Prime Minister Erden Butt in May 2017. It is for celebrating the diplomatic relations between 2 countries, 70th anniversary. And out of this 2 billion RMB, 700 million yuan was given to Mongolia in 2018 for housing projects, and 600 million yuan was given last year in 2019, which was used for renovation of Mongolian customs equipments. And this 700 million yuan will be decided by 2 governments later on for what they will use this money. Mongolia has a particular status of diplomatic relations with 2 our neighbors. That is called on diplomatic lingua. In diplomatic lingua, it's called Comprehensive Strategic Partnership with Russia and China. Mongolia signed with the 3rd neighbor countries. With Japan, US, and India, we signed a agreement called Strategic Partnership. Looks like this comprehensive strategic partnership is a level higher, meaning that there are so many other mutually accepted rules and in their relations. We call this one cold diplomacy because we are really dependent on China. Our 90% of our export is with China, and in 2019 we got $3 billion selling coal and $1.8 billion selling copper to China, and it's 70% of our export is these two commodities. So in a way, before it was prevailing was copper, now it's coal, and we depend a lot. This relation depends a lot on coal. Anyway, Mongolian budget has an income of 3.2 trillion tugriks from mining, and after amendment of our budget, it became 2.7 trillion tugriks as our mining revenue, commodities sale revenue decreased by 40%, substantial decrease. We were planning to export this year 40 million tons of coking coal to China, and even half is not done by this time, so they will more accelerate the export of coal to China. So we have been talking about economic diversification for last 30 years, and yet we are so dependent on China and on Chinese coal to China. The ambassador of China, when Chai Wen-ru, said that Chinese coal demand is decreased, but we increase its import from Mongolia upon the request by Mongolian side. Before, coal was piled in Mongolian side, now it's in Chinese side. These words say how much we are dependent on China. And we also would like to highlight the fact that the visit had happened during the country-wise protest in Mongolia and in Inner Mongolia due to Chinese government decisions to teach Chinese from their first grade. It was a second grade before, and then some major geography, history, major knowledge, major classes will be done only in Chinese. So Inner Mongolians and in the Republic of Mongolia find this is a big threat to culture and language of Mongolians, and there is a protest happening up to now, and abroad as well. All Mongolians abroad also protesting in front of Chinese embassy, etc. And this is a big concern of Mongolians, and I understand it was also a subject of discussions at the meetings, the private meetings of the Mongolian heads of states, President, Prime Minister, and Speaker with the Foreign Minister of China. Two sides expressed their concerns on this issue. Ex-President Ilbegdorj expressed in particular big protest against these positions. And however, ex-president is not anymore official figure of Mongolia, but Chinese Ambassador Chai Wen-ru said that this ex-president said before, when he was a president, Inner Mongolia is an integral part of China. But now, after his resignation, he is making double faces. That's what he said. And he also said, it's easier to cut trees, but difficult to grow. We should defend our relations. That's his comments. And President Ilbegdorj is now just private individual, not anymore state official. And Mongolian citizens have a freedom of speech and express whatever they think openly, directly, anyway. And that's why even this ex-officials have, and Mongolian state policy does not necessarily meet exactly the interests of Mongolian people. So then, if it is too much crossing, then we change the state itself. So before all news were through only state radio and TV before the democratic revolution in 1990. Now Mongolia has many plural opinions, plural media, and there's a social and traditional media, all plural. But because the pandemic, COVID-19, this time this visit was covered by a single sources, and everybody was referring to their sources. You know, it gives us a thought that the only existence and the independence of this country will depend on the power of the people. In this country, people control the state, not vice versa, like in many other countries, some other countries. So Mongolians, all this events show that Mongolians, we are so much shackled to coal. We must think again and again how we can sell, what kind of products we can sell, not only to China, but to the world. We need to be creative. That's the good food for thoughts for Mongolians that the visit gave us, reminds us again. Our second topic today, market and state. We bring this topic because the Prime Minister said earlier that there is no market, free market. There is only a regulated, state-intervened market. So because of this, we need to clarify what are the roles, what are the goals of state intervention into the economy. There are three goals according to their plan. First, to promote economic efficiency. Yes, it happens because the state corrects market failures like monopoly and pollution, or state creates public goods which otherwise it cannot be created by a private company because they cannot get a receipt. They cannot give a receipt and paid immediately. And they finance this public goods production with taxes collected from everybody. Second goal of state intervention is to provide equity to citizens. Taxing and redistributing. Also state creates progressive taxing, progressive income tax. The higher your income, higher your tax bracket. Also, the state creates systems of transfer, or we call it social network, and we will talk especially in our third topic about that situation in Mongolia of social safety net. The third goal is to make economic stability. The state tried to shave peaks of economic cycles, to decrease unemployment, to control inflation, and to support economic growth. But it does not meet all its purpose all the time. So what had to be regulated, intervened by the state? All state regulations to be only supporting fair competition. And it also corrects, as I said, market failures. There is a so-called natural monopoly, and in Mongolia there is a law that obliges a particular state agency to abide that. And in case of this public so-called monopoly, we mean mostly electricity, and they make sure that the amount of services and products provided by this natural monopoly to be in proportion to its capacity. And also, when giving a permission to state monopoly, they always consider the sales price of goods and prices. For example, now this particular anti-monopoly agency of Mongolia is working with Mongolian Airlines in order to have not too much prices for charter flights tickets, for example. The second major part of the state intervention is to protect against pollution, air pollution, water, soil, and they provide special laws, regulations, and or increase or decrease taxes on that regard. But however, state, instead of doing this, mostly they try to regulate the prices. And all price regulations for long run doesn't work, though many countries they tried. Prices are just with the point where the supply and demand meet each other, And the price is also giving objective information about the market, who to come and how to come, etc. But in Mongolia, because some prices are controlled by the state, they are very much skewed. Many countries tried that, and the final result was not always the aim they had before. Some countries try to make some goods cheaper. In the US, they tried renting. In some city, in New York in particular, they tried to keep renting price lower. As a result, they had a big problem with supplying rent places. In Germany, they tried to control, to keep lower the medicines. In some countries, they try to make goods expensive. For example, to cover cost of farmers, or either they increase the price or they give state subsidy. And the third, many countries do try to stabilize prices, but it doesn't work for the long run. They establish minimum floor in the roof of the prices. In Kazakhstan recently, they made 10 goods to have a certain prices, not more than certain prices. In Mongolia, they keep control on energy prices. And in some communist countries, they just set price by order. Either of them are not working in the proper way. So basically, the Mongolians more understand now there are two hands working for the economy, invisible hands, as Adam Smith said in 1776. And that's the system of prices, system of supply and demand, loss and profit. That's the controls economy on one side. Now, also the state controls economy through their laws, regulations. You can call it the visible hands. So these two hands, there is no single economy in the world where one of them only works, except probably North Korea, where only command economies work. But however, the state has also a failure, like a market does. And when the state too much coordinating and too much controlling economy, it becomes non-efficient, and it becomes big economic problem, more unemployment, big inflation, etc. We can see in case of many countries that. But the only thing is, this visible hand work failure is corrected also until invisible hand prevailing. And in democratic countries, it's usually happening after changing the power, changing the ruling power, and putting new one who is correcting that visible hand failure. So this is our second topic. Our third topic, Mongolians are less interested to work. Too much social care increases poverty. Poor and rich, it's very subjective thing, and depends on the way how a person understands and interprets. But however, poverty is a social phenomenon, and it is economic category. We study it separately. Poverty is important because it destabilizes society. It makes more poverty, and more poverty brings more problems, not only social problems. If absolute majority of the population is in poverty, there will be certainly wars, pandemic, revolution, conflicts between classes and tribes, etc. And poverty level is not only measured by education or by internet access or the amount per capita of mobile phones, etc. Many countries try to address this big social issue problem in many ways. The first country legally tried to address it was the UK. In 17th century, UK made so-called Poverty Act. And under this law, the sick people, elderly children were getting certain care money from the state. But down the road, in the process later on, there were so many people were covered by this care that in 19th century, UK changed the law. And it said that the understanding, social understanding was that people who can work if not working, they find it as not as a poverty. They call it moral poverty. So since that, the state just finds jobs for those people, nothing else. Nowadays, England has now so-called Child Poverty Act. So they are more addressing the issues of concern more directly. So now they address poverty, the children's poverty. In Germany, for example, those who are in poverty, in social care, the state offers 2 times jobs. If that person refuses to have those jobs, they are not receiving any more social care, for example. What's happening in Mongolia? Mongolians are receiving 72 types of social care and services from the state. Some 800,000 people are covered by this social care out of 3 million people. And all this social care money is financed from the state and local provincial budget. In 2015, that allowances, the whole social care without children allowances, it was 260 billion tugriks, or 1.1% of our GDP. If included the children allowances, it will be 2.1% of GDP of the country goes for social care. At the same time, middle-income countries spend 1.6% of GDP. High-income countries, 1.9% of GDP for social care. So Mongolia, in that case, even higher than high-income countries, 2.1%. Just one example, our social care allowances, the money comes in cash to these people. There are 4 types: nursing allowances, social care required family member allowances, emergency and life support allowances, child allowances. There are cases where a family under this care gets 1.5 million MNT per month, which is higher than public official salary. So that creates that no interest in work. Mongolia has also food stamps like in many other countries, and there is a special law, and their food stamps are implemented since 2013 in each 21 IMACs in the 9 districts of Ulaanbaatar city. And that food stamps are based on the calorie. So a person is supposed to receive a day to 2,500 kilocalorie. If the people receive less than 1,800, they regard it as not sufficient food. So state try to give through these food stamps that required calories to poor families. But however, it is becoming so widespread that these people who receives these food stamps go special to a particular drugstore, particular shops, stores, and some of them demand even to give vodka against that stamps, which is of course is not possible to do so because the particular stores are selected for food stamps delivery. Mongolian labor is 1.3 million out of 3.2 million people. But however, for last 1 year, just alone 2019, male labor had decreased by 48,000 people and female 37,000 just for last 2019. In Mongolia, registered unemployment is very low, only 18-some thousands, the lowest. In particular, last year it was the lowest because it was a huge increase in social care. As a result, Mongolia have now 2 problems. One, physical labor, very hard to find. People don't work to do hourly jobs with lower relatively salary, wages. Second problem, very hard to find persons that meet job requirements, particular specialization. It shows how much the education system is connected with labor or job opportunities. According to Mr. Hiromichi Katayama, UNESCO Youth Literacy and Skills Department head, there are 300 Mongolian youth who is not working and who is not registering themselves as looking for jobs. 300,000 youth. Because he says it was too much social care, the youth is not interested to have education, to work. This is very serious conclusions that our politicians don't want to recognize, in particular before election. There are several programs that politicians created. Motherland Gift, for example. Students get monthly stipendium. Every child has money. That money allowances keep increasing. And most of all this money comes from minerals revenue. And it is also fueled by the people's demand. Where is my share from this mineral rich of the country? So politicians, not to be elected, they try to meet that interest. That keeps going on. That keeps the social care increasing. According to a recent study, productivity in Mongolia since 1995, compared to GDP, have increased 2.8 times. But a real wage meaning a nominal wage minus this inflation, that had increased 4.3 times. That difference is financed from the natural resources revenue. These are our today's topics that we want to share with you, our analysis. Thank you very much for your time. See you online and on TV again in a week. Good night.